Yeah, hopefully you guys can still hear that. If not, just leave a message. Let me know if I'm getting my volumes right. If you guys can hear me clearly over people I have on, or if you can hear me clearly over any music I'm playing in the background. And if you're curious, that is Alex Noor. That is the. I've been seeing his stuff or hers because, to be honest, I don't actually know if it's a man or a woman, but I've been seeing their stuff pop up a lot across YouTube videos, Twitch, everything because they give permission for you to use their stuff. So I'm definitely going to have a link down in the description. When I move the video over to YouTube, I've had his or her videos playing in the background multiple times, and I've played their music for openings before. Great person. I appreciate their work, and I'm a huge fan. So if you get a chance, go over there and give them some love. So today we are here for another episode of the 40K Informant, and unfortunately, due to some mix-up, I don't have a guest today. But it's not a problem. I think this is probably going to be the first solo 40K informant I've done. Out of I think we're up to episode 12 or something. I'm not sure, but I'll double check later and possibly correct myself. Probably not. But as always, I'm your host, Gordo, the guardsman, and today we're just going to be touching on some stuff. So, like always, towards the end of the film, towards the end of the episode, we'll also have our recommendations for media that I think you guys should ingest, which we'll go into detail towards the end there. Today, though, I kind of, as I drop things, want to touch on tips and tricks and stuff that I personally, as a GM, do. Over the last, oh my god, it's been so long. I don't know, 12 years maybe? Since '09, maybe even '08. I've been playing in RPGs, GMing RPGs, playing tabletop, doing everything 40K, D&D, and otherwise. I've started playing D&D way back when. And I've played 5e a few times, but I gotta say, not 100% my thing. I'm one of those people where I'm in the mood for certain things. Sometimes I'm watching the Lord of the Rings movies, and I'm like, fuck it, I gotta play something that involves stabbing an orc. Let's go. And I'll hop into D&D or something like that. If I'm sitting there and I'm watching a bunch of Halo videos, I'm playing the Master Chief Collection, boom, I want to play Halo Mythic. Let's go. Fucking boot it up. If I'm if I'm feeling the sci-fi bug and stuff like that, it's where I'll be like, let's go, Space Marines. That's the kind of person I am. Now being said that, is that yeah, sometimes it can be I can just be I'm not in the mood to play that. But I've figured out that if I just force myself to watch something or listen to something or play something that is like it, I'll get there. So it's if earlier in the week I got a game that I'm gonna run Saturday and it's 40K, and I'm really not feeling it. It's like with my campaign, I have moments like that where it's man, I don't really want to play 40K right now, but it's boom, boot up the Ultramarines movie or watch the Astartes, or something like that, and just watch some fan made stuff or watch the trailer for the 9th edition rules. Just watch some decent animated 40K violence, and boom, that'll get me hyped up and get in there, and I'll be like, hell yeah, let's play some 40K, man, I'm in it. So there's benefits and negatives to that, because some people, if they just don't feel like playing something, they're not gonna, they're done. It's if you burn out, I can be burned out with something, but I can get rehyped very easily. Some people, once they're burned out, they do 6 weeks in a row of a 40K campaign, and then they're just not gonna show up anymore. They're I'm busy, I got work, and then next minute, they're missing 3 or 4 sessions, and you're it's dude, I'd rather have just be honest. But everybody handles stuff their own way, so they each their own, is what I say. But yeah, so little tips and tricks I'm gonna touch on is very first one right off the bat is the biggest thing, and I've talked about this before with Eric, who's been on here quite a bit, is the issue of range. Because the thing is when you go back and you look at all the RPGs, D&D, Pathfinder, Vampire the Masquerade, Call of Cthulhu, I mean, it doesn't matter what it is, 40K, Star Wars, any of them, range is not played to its extent. Most of the maps are maybe 50 meters, maybe less than that. It just depends. And see, I'm a GM, I do 1 meter per square. So if the game is measured in meters, that means if I want you to shoot 100 meters, guess what? I gotta have a map that has 100 squares, and that can put some taxing on your, some of your player systems, and some people can't run that. So what I've done before in a campaign is like, here, I can actually just draw it. So like, for instance, you got the players here. Like, okay, they're in this big box, or it's like a platform or a skyscraper roof, whatever you want it to be. And then over here, we'll say there's another roof. And so now you have enemies hitting here, and they're like shooting at each other. So what I'll do is that, strictly speaking, it's like, okay, well, like, this is set to feet. So like in D&D sense, it's like, okay, that's 75 feet. Like, okay. It's like, well, I could shoot a bow and arrow in D&D like 600 feet or something insane. It's pretty vast distance. And then here, let's switch it to meters. Like even here, we'll switch it to meters. And now, okay, so it's like 16 meters. That's like fucking short range. That's like nothing, bolters and stuff like that can go to like 100 meters. So, well, how do I increase that? How do I give my snipers, my marksmen, my people who got telescopic sights, the people who want to be able to shoot 600 or 500 meters or whatever, how do I help them out with that? Well, it's very simple. You can just sit here, and what you would do is you would obviously get like a blank space, so you would make a void. Like, what the way I explain that is that, like, you would fill this with whatever you want. So like, you could just make it black, get a black background and just make it solid black. Nothing's here, and you can just say, okay, this distance right here, this 6 meters is actually 500 meters. And then they're like, oh, okay, so if I shoot from here to here, it's not 16 meters, it's 516 meters. So now you have ranges that make sense, because the thing is, if you have enemies that are hundreds of meters away, the players aren't going to get to them, in a combat. Think about this. If an assault marine is trying to get to someone who's 500 or 600 meters away, he's going to be going for more than 20 rounds while getting shot at. It just doesn't make sense. You want to have them use, when dealing with a sniper, some relatively, grounded, like, realistic tactics as far as dealing with them, You don't want your assault marines to be charging for 20 rounds at a full sprint with their jump pack, trying to get in a melee with a sniper. It's like, no, you're gonna die. It's like, what you do is you just pop smoke, throw your smoke grenades down to give you cover, and leave, or suppress the target if you can, if they're close enough, which, that range, nah. Or counter sniper, have your sniper try to find them out and shoot them. Or you have artillery, mortars, like fire support that you could call in, stuff like that. So it's like, you deal with it those ways. Like, you don't just, like, you're not gonna charge over there. It's, you make that clear to them. It's like, okay, you can start doing that. And every time they do a round of running, just shoot them. And it's like, yeah, you're gonna have a minus and stuff, but it's like, if you have a marksman, they should have a pretty decent ballistic skill to be able to tag a space marine who's sprinting. I mean, if you're even worse, you could have them use the same tactics that they use. I've had players who built the tactical marine, stalker bolter, space marine with camo cloak or chameleon cloak, cameline cloak, however you pronounce it, the fucking fucking cape from Harry Potter, basically that thing. And it's like, oh, you can't detect their shots because they're using a stalker bolter with stalker rounds, and it's like, okay, well, what if I threw the same thing against them? What if I gave an enemy a long rifle with a silencer that had silence rounds, and you can't, 500-600 meters, you can't roll to detect them. So, boom, what if I gave them a cloak? I'm not going to say the word again because, I'm sure I'm going to have people trying to correct me for like 7 years about how I'm supposed to pronounce it. But, you would be very straightforward with, you could counter him with that. And then there you go. Now your marksman is having like his, maybe some marksmen don't like to have a counter sniper moment, but some do. They want to have a sniper duel like in Enemy at the Gates, but it's dependent on the player, which I would definitely say you gauge. But you do also give like the close combat guys a feeling of vulnerability, which they might not have had before. If you have some crazy close combat experts, they might have been just slicing through the enemy and not giving a shit and not taking damage, but now they're actually worried because they have nothing they can do. But alternatively, same setup. You have a void, you have a long distance, tall building, canyon, cliff, doesn't matter. They could be in a helicopter. Same situation, but let enemy forces be able to still attack from north, south, or, the west side, which would be left. Because with that, if you have a sniper and he's pinning down people and he's taking shots and he's being aggressive, and you have your sniper who's trying to counter him, slowly trying to figure out where he is and put a shot on him. If there's a bunch of like smaller foes that are approaching from one or multiple angles even, that your melee people and those who are not super long range can engage, everyone's still participating, everyone still has a focus and stuff like that, and they have to protect their sniper so he can find this other sniper and get the firing to stop. So one group that in 40k you could do that with easily is orcs. A crazy ass orc sniper or a grot sniper, whatever you want, and then some orcs running up to assault. In Halo Mythic, you would use elites and grunts and shield jackals pushing up with jackal snipers backing them up. So it's like very easy to do. I mean, an interesting fight would be a couple of sniper jackals and then 2 hunters. That'd be it. Ooh, that'd be some scary shit. But that's one of the ways. So it's like you really do have to sometimes think, well, I guess in and out of the box, and just use those voids. So you got to remember the maps are a representation. They're not supposed to be perfect, and they're supposed to be a representation. I mean, I come from me starting out and stuff. We did theater of the mind, period, like everything. So, and that had its ups and downs. I will say, for the longest time, I was mostly just theater of the mind. But when Roll20 started coming out and I gave it a try in some other people's campaigns and stuff, it does make it easier. It makes it a little bit more straightforward. But for a lot of the moments where, very simple moments, like unfortunately, yesterday, I had the Halo Mythic campaign go. We had our session, had some insurrectionists, and we fought, and there was a nuclear bomb involved, and it was a great story, but I fucking forgot to hit the start stream button, which I've double-checked like 40 times now on this stream just to make sure it's working. But I forgot to fucking hit it. So, and that was like a 5-hour session, and it's just poof, gone. It just didn't, it wasn't even like, oh, maybe I can like get the record. Nope, gone. I didn't hit stream. I didn't hit record. So, and I didn't even realize it until like 4.5 hours in, and I just was so defeated. I'm like, oh, and it was so good too. Like we were having a good blast. We were bobbing off jokes and having fun, but Damn, but we'll get the I've done two sessions now that haven't been recorded. The first one I just didn't record, and the second one I was dumb and I didn't hit the right button, so that sucks. But they're gonna be ODST now, so I guess we'll just see an ODST campaign now and go from there. But last session we had a player die. There was some insurgents, and I'm gonna do an overview on it next Thursday when we go into the next session to catch people up. But that really, it really disappointed me, you know. But that's luck sometimes. It is what it is. But what I was saying is that there was a situation in that one where there was a quick scuffle in like a warthog as they were driving. I didn't put that on the map. You don't need that on the map. If it's a small, like, intimate, like, in a room, like, very close quarters, like, simple thing, or if it's a moment where someone is talking to someone at a bar and then decide to draw their weapon, stuff like that, you don't really need a map for. See, some people think they need a map for everything. They need a map for their safe house. They need a map for their bar. They need a map. It's like, no, you don't. It's like, you need a map when there is going to be a combat there. Not if there's a chance there can be a combat there, if there's going to be a combat there. Because you know what? You know who at the end of the day decides if there's combat? Me, the GM. Or you, the GM. Just the GM in general. Or DM, Dungeon Master, Game Master, Zeus, the Almighty. Whoever's in charge of it. The Prophet, the Omega, whatever you guys call them. That's who decides when and where and how combat's gonna go down. That you make the map, you throw the enemies in it, you throw the players in it, and you let it go. But if you're sitting here making a map every single time they got to talk to an NPC and stuff like that, it's I've seen some like Matt Mercer stuff where he's like, I got stats in case they attack this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy and blah blah blah. And it's like, nah, I'm like, you should be able to, especially if you played with them before a good bit, you should be able to gauge what kind of players you have and if and when they'd attack someone. Like, yeah, if you have an NPC who's going to be a dick and he's going to threaten people and he's going to say like very rude stuff, yeah, you should definitely have stats ready for him to get his ass whooped. But if you have like a little girl and she sells apples or something, you don't need stats for her. And if you do, you need to just you got to keep in mind, you need to have your players play their characters. So if I have someone who says, well, I'm a mute, like he can't speak, well, guess what? He's going to have no dialogue. He's like, oh, I'm going to say to my party member, it's like, nope, no, you're not. Hold them to it. If you have someone who says, oh, I'm a nice guy, I fight for the righteous, I'm like Captain America. It's like, oh, I'm going to punch this girl in the head for trying to sell me an apple. It's like, no, you're not. Because you're supposed to be like Captain America. And last time I checked, again, haven't watched the movies in a little bit, but I don't think Captain America punched no girl in the head. So, that's the kind of stuff you got to like hold them to. You got to keep in mind that like there's rules that are unwritten, you got to hold players to what they're saying that they're going to be. Because you don't want people flip-flopping and stuff. And, it's like one thing that irks me to no end is people trying to do stuff that's not akin to their character for the lulz or for a laugh or whatever. That shit'll piss me off real fucking quick. Like, especially if it's a moment that they've been working towards for like weeks or something, and they decide to do something that's out of character, doesn't make sense, just to be funny. Sorry, I had to take a sip of my non-branded beverage, which I will take advertisements for. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, so there's a lot of levels to being a GM and going through stuff, and it's, for some people, it like intimidating. I know people who they think they've seen people GM, they play games all the time, and they don't want to step foot into it because they're like, nah, I've seen what could happen and this and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, it's like, I can understand, but like me as a GM, it's like I end up with some pretty decent players, and we have good stories and stuff because I kind of have a pretty high expectation for my players. I'm like, you can do better, you can be good, you can do this stuff, we can have a great time. That's just a fact. But like some GMs, they'll just let their players kind of run wild. I'm just telling y'all, it's like, the golden rule is that you have to have fun and they have to have fun. And I'm going to tell you, it's that like you need to establish what kind of fun you're having. Like, if I do a D&D game where we're playing as the figurines on the table come to life and it's like a Toy Story game and we're going to fucking go out there and find our players because they've been gone for so long, that's a goofy kind of game. In that game, you're going to be fighting dust bunnies and little army men and a cat. So that is goofy. I'm going to expect them to be goofy. But if we're sitting here like my 40K campaign, had some good moments, had great moments where they were talking and goofing around and they had jokes and stuff like that, but they were very serious moments. No one interrupted and started cracking jokes when Octavian killed Celebrimbor and was about to kill Nakai. Like, I mean, they did make that joke later where they were like, run program fear or something for the tech priest. But for the most part, they just focus and listen, and they're like, oh shit. And that's what you want. If you want to take it serious, they'll take it serious, and you hold them to it. If if it's a problem and there's someone who keeps interrupting it, you just talk to them, and if they don't get it, then they leave. That's how you work it. It's unfortunately, the way I see it at the end of the day is that I don't have time to spare, and they don't have time to spare. At the end of the day, with everything that goes on in the world, I have a daughter, I have work, I have all this shit I have to do, and I still want my hobby time to be about fun and relaxing. So if you're gonna waste my time, I'm not gonna have it. And that's how I feel everyone should value their time. If you got someone who doesn't get their character done, doesn't want to spend their XP, doesn't want to write stuff on their character sheet, tell them, say something. You guys have to remember that at the end of the day, it's the internet. There are so many more people you can find to play with, and at the end of the day, even if it's just you and one other person, who cares? A couple of the best games I've ever run was just me and another person. Because it's fun. It's he does a voice, I'm doing voices, and stuff like that. And it's straightforward, but you're here to just tell stories, have a good time, and enjoy it. So you got to make sure that anything that stops you from enjoying it, it's got to get out of here. It gets warned and then it gets gone. But with these maps and stuff like that, I would say definitely keep them simple. Like, straightforward. You got to think just, you don't have to do an entire city like you don't have to do 17 buildings. You can do just 2. You got to think smaller scale. It depends on what you're actually doing. It's like, you don't have to push Roll20 to be like 100 by 100 size map. You don't have to have a giant map that they have to scroll through and stuff. Now, like, large maps are good sometimes. That's definitely, there's an exception to everything. Large maps are good. But having it simplified where your players can easily navigate and move through, having them being able to explore a little bit of the map, but you need to kind of look at some of that stuff as like Call of Duty-esque, you know what I mean? Like their maps are balanced. There's sections of their maps that are very close quarters, so shotguns and melee fighters excel. And then there are some that are long straightaways with almost no cover, because that's where your long-range snipers excel. And you should provide maps like that, And like, it's like, okay, this area is like 6 meters long. A DMR can shoot here pretty good. Oh, this area is like 5 meters before you have to make a turn into a room, and then another room, or around a corner into a hallway. That's great for like melee and shotguns. So like I would say, yeah, every time maps should be balanced. And then those maps where you're trying to get out to those extreme ranges, do something like this. Make a void that's a certain amount of distance, and then have an enemy that's unreachable shooting at them. And if you want to provide the rest of the party something to do, throw some other little enemies at them. Like, oh, you're getting ambushed on a canyon side, or a cliff face or something. And that's interesting. It's something to do. And I'm also a GM who believes in quantity instead of quality when it comes to enemies. Like, I'd much rather throw 40 shitty people at someone than one or two tough guys. Because like I've played a lot of D&D, and so many of those combats in D&D just boil down to the entire party beating the shit out of one target for 10 rounds or something. Whereas some of my combats average up to past 15 rounds. I average probably anywhere between 15 to 25 rounds for most of my combats because I have a lot of little targets. And Halo Mythic's a different animal because in Halo Mythic, like, all the weapons are dangerous. So even the sidearms. So like all these little targets are actually very dangerous. But the last session they did 32 versus 6 and they lost one person. So that's a pretty good average to me. If that happens. But in 40K, if I throw 40 humans with las guns at some Space Marines, I might as well just give them a matchstick. Like, it's nothing. So I've had to get creative, but if you look pass through my Octavian Zeal, the 40K campaign I did that took place in Andromeda and the Milky Way, if you look through that, you see there's a lot of combats that involve significant amount of units. Sometimes they're hordes, sometimes they're not. Sometimes it's just multiple groups of guys. So, it's very interesting. But with being a GM, it can cause a lot of stress. It can cause issues sometimes. Some people just don't handle it, and I feel like it's more of a. It's strange because it's like for me, like sometimes I wake up and I'm like, I know my games today, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. Then I go and do it, and I have a great time. But it's like, sometimes you just have that. Everybody deals with it differently. Some people just get stressed out about it. They don't want to GM. Some people just don't realize that some GMs do get stressed with the whole thing. And like for me, the stress comes from what I'm doing being judged, and they're not liking it. Because that is stressful. It's the same as like singing a song for someone and they think you sound like shit, or like drawing a painting and they think it looks like shit. It's all in that same category. You're a storyteller. It's the same if I wrote a short story or a fan fiction and then I was like, hey, you want to check this out, guys? And they're like, this could never happen. It's garbage. It's shit. Kill yourself or something. And then it's like, well, damn. There's something about it. It's like being judged, so it can be stressful for some people. And all I would say to that is that I didn't get good overnight or even decent. And in my opinion, I'm still not great or good. I would say that I'm just an average guy doing an average job, and I'm just having fun on occasion. And I'm just trying to make these people who are playing with me have a great time. So if that's what it is. But even then, I didn't get like these tips and tricks and stuff like overnight. It took a long time, but that's the beauty of being able to access the internet and take a look around and hear and see other people's stuff. And I've even watched like some of Matt Mercer. That's a guy who is making a living and is doing everything he wants to. That's the top. That's where you're aimed to be as a GM, because he's done it. He's playing D&D with friends, and I assume is making money. I assume he is making money off of it. I'm not into his personal life, but I assume they get money for doing what they're doing. Um, but I look at some of his videos and I don't agree with what he says, and that's the beauty of it. That's the most amazing part of it, is that you fucking can do that. You can listen to what I have to say. This whole thing about like dealing with snipers and stuff, about using a void distance and like making it 500 meters or whatever. You could say Alex or Gordo, either name's fine. You could say, Gordo, that's shit. I hate that. I hate you. Bad idea. And I could be like, all right, that's fine. And then I would ask you what your thing is, and you were like, I run up to all my ranged people and I hit them with a hammer. It's like, oh, okay, all right, that's I don't agree with it, but that's fine, And that's the beauty of it, is that it is just opinions and people giving each other's opinions. How is everyone? Oh, how are you doing, Radic? How's it going, man? But it's funny. I always love it. Is that the fact it's so open in interpretation. I mean, shit. You have everybody who runs their games even their own. There's a lot of homebrews. There's a lot of house rules. People just match it to do what they want to do, and it's great. That's the great thing. And I would say with Roll20, one thing that I say is that the marketplace. Now, some people, they don't want to spend any money at all. They get all their books from the Trove. They make their own assets or get them off the Trove and stuff. And, that's a site where you just download like PDFs and stuff. But I would say that the marketplace things are great because, number one, it doesn't take up any of that space. So, like, you can still run the free Roll20, and use their marketplace purchases and get, all of those in there for free. And I mean, dude, I've bought quite a bit. I've bought, I don't know, there's a lot there, like over a dozen, because it makes it easier, as a GM. The most expensive one I bought was like maybe $5. They're all around $4.99 to $7.99 depending on which one you get. But being able to just, it's like this one. It's like I've used this one. I paid $4.99 for this one, and I've used it for my 40K campaign, for my Halo campaign. I would use it for a modern campaign in a heartbeat. Oh, it's this one here. So I've gotten my money's worth out of this one already, instantly. See this one? That's the top left piece of the map for my 40K campaign, This is half the lobby entrance where they went in, and there's the stairwell that Flint and them used to get back up. So like I've used it twice already. I've used it for 2 campaigns, Halo and 40K. I would use it for a modern campaign easily because it fits in the setting. If you go through and you pick your map packs right, you could spend $5, $20, anywhere between $5 and $15. And you have a map set you could use for multiple campaigns, easily. A skyscraper, modern cities don't fit in the fantasy realm, Doesn't work. But if I wanted to use it for Halo, 40K, I could probably use it for Star Wars. I could make that work. Cyberpunk, any modern kind of game, Vampire the Masquerade. There's so many games that I would use it for. So, I mean, the map packs they're good. It's where it's at. Grab the stuff you need. And I would definitely say, don't be someone who looks at a map pack and goes, oh, I could use that specific thing for this mission in this game I'm running. Don't do that. Look at a map pack and say, okay, I can use this for my campaign and it would benefit me. But what else could I use it for? Because the thing is if you go in there and you're like, okay, I need something that looks like a teleporter, and you pick up a map pack that looks like a teleporter, but it doesn't have anything else in there that you can use for any other campaign. And, everything's all wonky, or it's like weather effects, or something that you can't use that often. You just didn't get your money's worth out of that. Buying that for one token, that's insane. You need to look in there and be like, okay, I might be able to use that thing as a generator, and this thing as a teleporter, and this as this, and that's the thing. Don't let them tell you. Like here, look, I got one for like sci-fi decor. Just random sci-fi shit. Anything from a desk to generators to hologram projectors, like it's just random stuff. But I'll tell you, don't let them tell you what something can be. I've used stuff. Oh, and then this one has barrels too. Let's see here. Yeah, so we got a bunch of shit here. Look, that says that's a heat sink. I don't know what a heat sink is. Some kind of radiator or something. Like I don't fucking know. But I could use it as, whatever the hell I want. But like something like this. Look, he says machinery. They're like, oh, this is a piece of machinery. It's like, okay. Yeah, so it's like I could make it this big. It's like that's easily like 10 or 15 times the size of a player. And they can say like, oh, this is a piece of machinery that fuel goes through. Or I can say, oh, okay, this is they've planted an explosive on top of this machinery or something like that. Or if I make it small, like I make it real small, like 1 square, that could easily be a bomb. I show it to my players, I'm like, that's a bomb. It's got little things on it, that's bomb, boom. You can literally just make anything you want, whatever you want. You don't have to listen here. Like, I mean, that thing. Like, look, that listed as machinery. If I make it large, it could be an engine of some sort. It could be a jet engine. If it's small and it's only 1 square, maybe it's a lightsaber hilt. Like, who the hell knows? Who cares? You just make it you. Like that thing. Look. I don't know, to be honest, half of these things do look like bombs, but if you make them large, connect them and stuff, overlap them, use everything you have, man. Look at all this crazy stuff. And I got this one for $5. Look at this. Look, those can easily be like different landmines, traps, anything. They could be lasers, just crazy stuff. That could be a dome. Oh, those are just, what are those, like power lights? So, I mean, like, stuff like that. Look, see, like, something like that, that's for, like, walls and stuff. Can be a piece of machinery. Could be a trip mine, up against a wall. They look stuff like that. You can put them on, like, the back of vehicles and say they're, like, power supplies. Those are just pipes. Pipes are going to be pipes. They can just be different size pipes. But, like, tables and stuff. But, like, $5, I get a bunch of this stuff. I always try to make sure that like my map packs kind of work together and I can use them for more than just a couple of things. And they're good quality. Now I'm gonna say some of their map packs are shit. They're drawn like shit. They look like shit. That's why they show you all their assets before you buy. Just look through them. Don't go out there and just start buying stuff. Look through them. See if you can find someone on YouTube using them or something like that. And then bam, boom, get you something. You print the pages off of Google, Radic? Radic, and that is a blessing, not a curse. Yeah. I don't print them off the... I used to. When I played in person, I'd print character sheets and stuff like that off. I haven't done it in a long time. I just didn't. But, yeah, I mean, printing it off works. Some people still draw in the grid book and stuff like that. Some people still use models and stuff. I do not, because I don't play in person anymore. I don't live around the friends that I grew up with anymore for like the last 5 years, so I don't play in person. And where I'm at now, I don't know why that thing stopped. Where I'm at now, there's just like a Games Workshop, and I don't play the tabletop too much anymore. It's yep. It always comes back to us talking crap about GW, but it's like their prices they got insane. They're pretty rough. It's pretty crazy. But with being a GM, I'm gonna say, you know, it's just about having fun. And when it comes to having fun, you gotta remember, if you're not ready to be a GM, definitely don't step into it. Don't force it, because it can sour the experience for you. And I will say, if you don't have the time to put into your campaign, because here's the thing, um, sometimes, yeah, I've put some maps together the day before a game. Like, I'm not gonna bash anybody for that. Like, yeah, if you wanna put some stuff together, kind of like the day before, that's fine. Now, I will say, last minute, that is some bullshit. You should not be making a map when your players are joining the lobby. That's insane. You know, maybe moving some stuff around, making some fine tweaks. But if you're starting to make the map while you're playing, because I've been in games where GMs do that, and that's yeah, that's just rude. You're not showing the respect you should to your players. If you can't find like an hour in an entire week, if you have a weekly game and you can't find an hour to sit down and think about what you're planning as a GM for a minute. Now, I'm not telling you like you got to make every single thing and every single possibility, but if you know they're going to an outpost to fight, that map needs to be ready. That needs to be ready. You need to have that map ready. You need to have the enemies on it. You need to know what enemies they're going to fight. You should not be making shit up while they're trying to do it. That's just rude, you know. Like, I do stuff on the fly and I make stuff up, but not to that extent. I don't make maps up off the fly. I don't do that. I'm really kind of prepared when it comes to people getting into fights. If I think there's a possibility, like if it's a 50-50 whether or not there could be a fight, I make a map. Whether they use it or not, doesn't matter. I make the map. And I've had that happen many times where they're going to meet with someone who could potentially fight them, and they just talk it out. So, that's something that is very easy, that you should set aside the time. I find it personally like relaxing and kind of soothing to sit down, listen to some music, or like I'll play It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia in the background, or like Bob's Burgers or something. Yeah, it's just some show where I can hear shit happening and it's kind of funny, but I don't have to pay attention to it. And I just start going to, typing up NPCs, typing up characters, making the maps, making different maps. Because with me, it's like I can always get them to the destination, so I don't have to worry about it. It's like you can crank out some maps and use them anytime. Make a map with a large room and some cover, and make a underground facility or something. Just because the map may have been, I've had multiple maps that I made for one mission that they just didn't go to, and then they used them anyways on the next mission because I know how to navigate them to it and stuff. And the players aren't going to know unless you tell the players. They're not going to know. I've run into GMs before where it's like, okay, you have a left and right choice. They make both, and then when when the party chooses left, they're like, oh, well, this would have been right, and I'm going to get rid of it. No, don't tell them what right is. Keep the right-hand choice and make that the next choice. Make a left and a right, and then guess what? When they make a choice, guess what? Next time there's a left and a right, you now have one. Because, I don't want to overcomplicate it. I don't want to overwork myself. It's supposed to be relaxing, I don't want to sit there and make a map and make a thing for every single possibility. No. I drive the narrative. I know where it's going. I'm the storyteller. So you give them the illusion of making choices, and you help them have a good time. That's how it is, You can choose left or right door, but either one's the same choice. It's the one I have, and that's it, Because that's what the players want. They want direction, But you don't want them to know how linear the story actually is. And that's the thing. Sometimes they react to you and your decisions. Sometimes you react to them, you know? oh shit, they bypassed this city where I had the bad guy at. What do I do now? Well, simply you could move the bad guy to the city they're going to. Duh. Or you could just have it where they went around him, and since they didn't see him, he now gets to continue his nefarious plots unimpeded. And then that means he can be more powerful the next time they have a chance to see him. So, like, you can always make it work. Some people feel like just because the party didn't go there, that the world's ending. And it's like, no. It's like some places that do, like some D&D people, they'll make an entire world map and all the way down to these small cities, and they do like these governments and crazy, they're just world building on top of world building on top of world building. And it's like, okay, that's cool, but if your players never see it, like, they never meet the one government you wrote for 4 hours, then it's pointless. But if world building is your hobby and it's relaxing you, it provides zen, it makes you feel good, then do it. It's the same as like painting models for the tabletop. If building a world and filling it with all this lore is relaxing you and is fun for you, do it. Don't ever stop. But I'm saying that if you are one of those people who sits there and says they don't have time to do stuff for their campaign and they don't have time to do this or that or this, you shouldn't be sitting there for 6 hours writing the lore about geopolitical stuff going on with 3 races that don't exist. You should be focusing on what things your party will actually be encountering and dealing with, because that's just wasted energy. So it really is like, as a GM, you have to be a bit organized. You have to have some time management about you. And that's just like a skill. You have to have that stuff, because if you don't, the players will see through it and they will begin to have like a resentment and stuff. And it's one of those things, is that there is a level of trust that has to be gained between GM and player. A GM who sits there and it happens all the time, especially in my campaigns, because I do far-reaching stuff. I throw people into Andromeda in the 40K universe, so I do far-reaching shit. But there have been multiple times where, like, the player Flint, who played Dane, him especially, he was like, hey man, I don't know why you're doing that, that's not how this worked, yada yada, with like a decision I made. And I go, there's a reason for it, but if you'd like, I can spoil the story for you. And he goes, I have no problem, I will tell you, and it's justifiable, but it'll spoil some stuff. And he'll be like, no, I don't want anything spoiled, I'll just, wait. And then when stuff started to reveal and stuff started to go, he's like, oh, that's why you did it that way. And I'm like, yeah, I have reasons. I thought it out. Like, I put some thought into the stuff I do, because I don't like when a GM, as a GM, you shouldn't just sit there and be like, if your players are like, hey, why is this happening this way when normally it doesn't? And you just go, that's just what I wanted to do. It's like, you need to give them more than, you can't just, like, I had a GM who, he ran a D&D game and he had dragons, and he decided to switch up how they act and what they did and all this, so the colors don't really, a black dragon isn't bad anymore and isn't acid based or whatever. It was, something else. And he switched it up, and when the players were like, well, those dragons don't really do like that, that's not really true, that's not how that happens, why are you doing that? And he was like, I just wanted to do it so that you guys couldn't metagame and it would mix you up. And it's like, that's a bit of a dick reason. Where it's like, there was one campaign I ran where it's like, I had a red dragon that was black, and because of that simple thing, it tricked these players and it caused a lot of damage. And when they asked, I was like, well, that's not a black dragon. It's like, no, it's actually a red dragon who began praying to the god of death because his red dragon god abandoned him. Like, I went into the lore, I actually did a little research, and I put some thought behind it, and I had that prepped for any questions, because it's like, you can't just change shit around. You can't change, like, how shit works on a player if they normally think it works this way and not explain it to them. Like, you have to give them some, like, it's given. give and take, man. Like you have to give them something. But it's still it's a blast. Running a game, running. I it's there's people who complain about like, oh, I I'm a fucking forever GM or something like that. But it's like I pick stories that I want to see. I want to see these stories and I want to see them unfold. I pick stories I want to tell. So it's like as a GM, I have no problem being the GM. Yeah, sometimes I want to be a player. Being a GM, it seems to be an art that's losing its edge sometimes. Yeah, because the thing is that your feelings at the time can affect your GM. So like if you're not in it, if you're not in the right headspace, it can fuck you. There've been some times where, I've had to stop campaigns before and stuff like that because I've been down or I've had depression or something like that, and you know, um I try to just keep everything personal out of it because the thing is I could come into my 40K game and I could be like, hey, I got stuff going on and all this and just dump it on them, but that's not right. That's not what it is. Especially because this isn't like, oh, I got with some friends that I know from high school and we're gonna get together and play D&D. That's one thing. You can stop that for a second and be like, hey, Dave, I'm having some stuff going on at home. That's why I don't like going to school or something. That's high school friends. These are online people who are looking to get together for the simple thing of, having fun and playing an RPG. And that's an escape for some people. So when you sit there and you want to hit them with like, oh, my grandma died, or I lost my job, or something, or like my dog got ran over by a truck, or anything like that, it's putting it on them. Maybe they're dealing with some stuff, and you just bringing it up. And I had a player who did that. Um, yeah, exactly, Radek. You come to escape, not to throw things at people. Exactly. I had a player who did that. He would message, and the thing, thing was is that I'm the exact example of what I was trying to tell him is that he gets on there and he messages about how his dog is like very sick and like he thinks the dog's gonna die and he was kind of over dramatic about it. And I'm like, I message him and I'm like, hey man, if you need to talk to someone, just DM them and say, hey, do you have a minute to talk? I'm having a tough time and I'd like someone to talk to. I'm like, I'm sure no one would have an issue doing that. I said, but do not throw in the general chat about that stuff and talk about how like your dog's dying and you're upset and like how you might kill yourself and like it seemed like a cry for help more than anything because just a few weeks before that my dog had been run over by a truck and I'm like just getting over it and dealing with it and he's over there messaging it and now I'm all upset and I'm like now I'm remembering my dog and I'm like it's fucked up. And I told him that. I'm like, dude, I said, you need to just DM someone. I'm like, because my dog just recently died, and I'm sure yours is going to be fine. Which it was. His dog was fine. I don't even know what it was. He ate like cat poop or something, and then like a week later he was fine. But I told him that, and then like a couple weeks later he starts talking about how his grandmother's dying. And again, he hit me right on the nail. My grandmother just passed away like 4 months ago. He was hitting every nail he could for me, and I know he didn't know. Yeah, misery does love company, Raddick. But it was just funny that he's just hitting everything on the nose. It's like you know, dude, it's like I get it, but I told him I'm like, dude, I was like, don't message any of that stuff again. I was like, I had to just lay it down. I'm like, I was like, you're messing with me now for the second time. And I said to you already, just DM somebody. You know, everybody will talk to you. I'll talk to you. I said, but stop doing it in the general messages because that's that's like on par with like someone throwing up like a new photo or something like that. It's like you're not asking anyone if they want to see it or if they want to hear it or anything like that. You're just throwing that information there, and then when they read it, thinking that it's like someone's messaging the server for something, it's like, oh no, it's like something that's gonna like kind of sour their mood and stuff like that. And it's like, you try to show compassion, but you kind of have to be like, you're forcing people to hear this stuff, and it's like it's a very strange situation. It's like you don't want to be a dick because it's like you got to show compassion. It's like, oh, he's going through stuff, and it's like, yeah, but we're all adults here, and he could very easily just, be. It's like I don't know how to explain it. It's like I don't know if it's a matter of respect or sympathy on his part or what. It's a really strange situation, but it's something that people understand when you explain it. It's like nobody wants to hear that because you don't want to force it on anyone. If you ask somebody, because that's the thing. If he asked me, if he shot a message in my DMs, hey man, do you have a minute to talk? I'm all upset about personal stuff going on. I'd be like, yeah, sure, what it is. And as long as it's not like anything like crazy illegal, as long as he's not going to tell me he's like kidnapping kids or something, like we're good. But and then I talk to him about it because everybody handles stuff differently. You know, some people, me, I don't really talk about my stuff and I don't really show it and I don't really give a shit. It sucks and I'm just gonna keep on, trugging along, and I'll do handle it how I handle it on my time. But I'm not gonna put it on other people. And some people are the exact opposite. They have to just dump this stuff on other people, and I don't think that's right. But you know, there's a lot of stuff as GM, and the longer you GM, the more weird shit and the more strange shit and the more shit that you're gonna have to deal with, see, and have to deal with. You got to understand you don't find perfect players. No, nobody's perfect. Nobody. Everybody has a thing. But you gotta say that you gotta have a set of rules. You gotta have certain principles that you hold yourself and the party to. If I'm someone, if you miss half of my games, so I don't care if we're on session 2 or if we're on session 40. If you miss half of them, you're gone. And I hold myself to that. I'm not going to miss half my games. I also don't like it when people are late. If you constantly are late, you're going to get messages from me and then we're going to talk about it. And then if it keeps happening, you're going to be gone because I don't show up late. It's very rare if I show up late. But even then, it's like I'll let people know. Like, yeah, it happens sometimes. You got to run to the restroom. I meant to say this when Boris died. Isn't it a little late, like only a few years off of his intended death day? I mean, his intended death day was like 6 months prior in game, so it's not a few years off, unless we're talking about something else. But he was supposed to die when we had the one player rage quit, which was funny as hell. But uh, he was gonna be sacrificed, but him staying behind was one more Boris trick because he knew he couldn't get Nakai to do it any other way. Because the thing is that like somebody was gonna have to stay behind to work the portal, and he knew Nakai would have volunteered, so he got him out of there. But it's yeah, it's funny, how stuff works out. I look back at that campaign, and there will be more. There definitely will be more. Right now, I'm thinking of talking with them about the next campaign. Either the next campaign is going to be about a watch scout squad, or we're going to do Xenos. And I think most of the players are going to be leaning towards Orc. Oh, yeah, yeah. Boris was made on basically someone made him trying to fuck with me, saying that he was unkillable. So he was supposed to die hundreds of times now, many years ago. So we're talking about Boris is like somewhere around. I mean, shit. It was like the second campaign I did. So when did Deathwatch come out? He's like a year older than the Deathwatch book itself, or a year younger than the Deathwatch book itself. So he's like over 10 years old. and he got laid to rest now. He ain't surviving that shit. Or is he? Dun dun dun. Yeah, no, he's probably dead. I say probably because I don't know. I've had NPCs walk away from stuff like that before, and they've come back. So we'll fucking find out. But I'm leaning towards he's dead. But that's kind of unjust. I had to kill him in a cutscene. Yeah, that makes me feel like I cheated. So because then that would have been the second attempt I killed him, and it was all in a cutscene. He wasn't surviving those plasma guns though, so I'm gonna call that one fair. But yeah, I think we're leaning towards Ort homebrew, which unfortunately, Fantasy Fight Games. I've noticed they redid their website recently, and they don't have a forum for all their homebrew anymore, which sucks balls. So Boris returns the very next day. Yeah, he'll come back. They'll FedEx him back to the Inquisition. It'll just be a heart in his brain attached with some wires. But I think I'm gonna call it here today. I've yacked and yacked about being a GM, and I think it's a good podcast. Definitely is fun for me. But thanks for tuning in, guys. Hopefully everybody who watches has a great time and like, comment, subscribe, and all that kind of stuff. And if anybody has any suggestions, feel free to do a message on YouTube and also on my Twitch channel. I have a suggestions box. I'd love to hear people's ideas. But thanks for tuning in, and y'all have a good day. I'll catch you next time.